I never thought I'd become the kind of person who watches in silence, waiting for the right moment to act. But betrayal does that to you. It awakens a side of yourself that you never knew existed. My wife Lisa had been acting strangely for months. Late nights, at work, sudden defensive answers to simple questions, and a warmth in her eyes that seemed to vanish whenever I walked into the room. I tried to ignore it, tell myself I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One evening, I followed my instincts. She had claimed she was staying late to finish a project, but I noticed her car parked at a nearby café, the kind where business deals often happen discreetly. I parked a few spaces away and watched. And then I saw them, Lisa, laughing and leaning closer to her boss, Mark. The sight hit me like a punch to the chest. They kissed. There was no hesitation, no shame. Just pure betrayal. I felt a swirl of emotions, anger, disbelief, heartbreak. But I knew that impulsive confrontation would solve nothing. I wanted proof. Something undeniable, something she could never deny. I pulled out my phone and began recording. Every moment, the flirtatious touches, the whispers, the laughter, was captured in high definition. I stayed hidden, careful not to be seen. My hands shook as I pressed stop on the recorder, my chest tight with rage and sorrow. When she returned home that night, pretending as if nothing had happened, I confronted her, but not yet with the evidence. I needed her to squirm in uncertainty first. She smiled, casually asked how my day went, completely unaware that I already knew everything. Over the next few days, I made a plan. Revenge doesn't have to be physical. It can be psychological, devastating, and precise. I decided to share the recording with everyone she knows, not to humiliate her publicly in the street, but to make her feel the weight of exposure in every corner of her life. Friends, family, colleagues, she would feel it from every angle. When the day came, I began sending the clips. First, a private message to her closest friends, then to her siblings. Then, with careful discretion, to her colleagues and even her boss's social circle. I didn't add commentary, didn't inject anger. The truth alone was devastating. I watched silently as the reactions came in, shock, disbelief, whispers, and eventually confrontations. Lisa was panicked, desperate, realizing that the web of deceit she had spun was collapsing. When she came home that evening, her eyes were wide, frantic. "Why, how? What did you do?" she stammered, trembling. I stayed calm. Coldly calm. "I showed everyone the truth," I said simply. "Everyone you trust, everyone you think knows you, they know now." Tears streamed down her face as she fell to her knees, begging, apologizing, promising it would never happen again. But apologies don't erase betrayal, and she knew it. I didn't shout, I didn't hit, I didn't cry. I let the consequences of her actions speak for themselves. The humiliation, the loss of trust, the severed relationships, it was all hers. In the weeks that followed, our lives changed forever. Lisa's relationship strained under the weight of exposure, her colleagues looked at her differently, and her boss avoided her entirely. She had to live with the reality she had created, and I watched from a distance knowing I had delivered the lesson she so desperately needed. Some may call it cruel, some may call it excessive, but betrayal changes people. It forces you to decide whether to forgive, fight, or reclaim control. I chose the last, and in doing so, I discovered a side of myself I never knew existed, a calculated, observant, and relentless side capable of making sure that the truth is never hidden again. Now, months later, Lisa and I barely speak. The air between us is thick with unspoken words and lingering resentment. She has learned the consequences of her actions, and I have reclaimed my power, my dignity, and my peace of mind. Betrayal is a poison, but exposure is a cure. And I made sure she drank it fully, with no escape, no denial, and no forgiveness without accountability.